The fight against Islamization is something that can only succeed when it is rooted in the true history of Europe, which is rooted in Christianity, which is multi-tribal, which is multinational.
I also think that God has given us the commandments, has given us certain rules for life that we should follow as much as we're able to, and if we're going to live in an anarchy, there will be no social structure. I think that marriage is something that is very important, that our society should prioritize. The family unit, I don't think that Antifa stands for that.
Poland, Hungary, Serbia, and the Eastern Europeans have a much stronger sense of their own identity, are much more able to stand up to liberal politics and the disastrous policies of Merkel. No, free speech is what we do at Speaker's Corner.
Yeah.
What this was not free speech.
Clearly.
What this was an attempt to suppress free speech.
No.
Every one of us here are regulars at Speaker's Corner,
So
and we live by the
So
principle of free speech.
So do I.
Yeah,
I didn't come out in support
I've
of
not
this.
seen this guy. Has anyone seen this guy? What's my name?
Oh, that's good.
I don't know your name either.
Right, well.
I know his name.
Okay.
I know his name.
Right, okay.
I know his name.
Right, okay.
Do you know
Yeah.
why? Because we're the regulars.
Right, yeah, okay.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason. It's the schizophrenic approach of the
There
left.
was a large wall of
This is the schizophrenic approach of the liberal. They talk about free speech whilst trying to apologise for its
Like going to power, they suppress freedom of speech as much as anybody else.
Yes.
Okay. So you
Yes.
are aware of it.
Yeah.
Right? You are painting them out to be some sort of fantasy.
But right now, as you heard me quite clearly state, right now, they are defending freedom of speech for the wrong reasons.
Well, no, I don't think they are defending freedom.
Well, they blatantly are defending
putting
freedom
on a
of speech.
front for the protection of freedom of speech.
They aren't suppressing freedom of speech in the way that this mob were.
But nobody was suppressing it.
No, well, I'll just prove it to you by the fact.
Are you talking about your
that's on
interview when they
film.
walked away?
No, what happened was, I've been on that side, Content Over Everything and JC have both filmed me interviewing people on that side. We had calm conversations in which we had clear points of disagreement. I came round to the Antifascists, and what happened was, they didn't want to talk, and then when I tried to talk to someone who did want to talk, I was being pushed.
Right, okay.
Being pushed
Yeah,
by
okay.
someone from the Antifascists. Then they started playing the loud siren thing to suppress the conversation.
That's one
Then they
person.
started flashing lights. So that's actually three people
That's
doing
three
three
people.
actions.
How many?
Right, so this is working as a group, and you're trying to
Not
say...
entirely. No, not
No,
entirely.
they are a group.
No,
They
they're not. No, they're
they
not.
came as a
That's
group,
right.
they left
No.
as a group, they even had a uniform like a group.
That's not entirely
If it
true.
walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck, my friend. If
said
it
on their
looks like a
website?
group and behaves like a group, it's a group.
What you just said was that there were three people who were against the person who's trying to agreement to the interview, right?
No, the whole mob of them,
When you said three people.
bar one person. One person
Right,
was
okay.
willing to
Okay,
discuss.
right. If there are
One
three people
person.
trying to suppress
So-
that, then it
So
can't
the
be a
evidence
group.
on the ground
They're
is
not
actually
acting as a
that
group.
only one person
No.
was in favour of free discussion, and the rest was against it.
Well, no, sure. That
So explain to me why it was on camera, why it was on camera that members of the Antifascista formed a cordon and were telling one another not to engage. Explain that to me.
It says on the website. They
because
say
I'm
they're
pre-
against freedom of speech.
I don't, on their website.
Yeah,
What's the
Antifa,
website?
they don't believe. They think that if you're talking hate speech,
Look at North
they have to
London
suppress you by any
Antifa.
means necessary.
Look at
You
that.
understand? That's what they say.
You've come to the wrong place, brother. Brother.
I tweeted at them 2 days
Steve.
ago opposing what was going on.
Brother,
So, yeah,
brother,
don't
you've come
break
to
me
the
out
wrong
today.
place to argue about free speech because every one of us here are regulars at Speaker's Corner,
am I.
and we live by the
So do I.
principle of free speech.
So do I.
Yeah,
I didn't come out in support
I've
of
not
this.
seen this guy. Has anyone seen this guy? Has anyone seen this guy? You are not a regular at Speaker's Corner.
From here.
Yeah?
Yes.
Brother, the fact of the matter is, what's my name?
Oh, that's good.
I don't know your name either.
Right, well.
I know his name.
Okay.
I know his name.
Right, okay.
I know his name.
Right, okay,
Do you know
yeah.
why? Because we're the regulars.
Right, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you're not a regular.
I mean, if
Free speech is
Yeah.
what
Well,
we
you're not a
do.
regular, yeah.
No, free speech is what we do at Speaker's Corner.
Yeah.
What this was not free speech.
Clearly.
What this was an attempt to suppress free speech.
No, not at all.
That's what it was.
Not an attempt to. They do believe
How was suppressing an interview not an attempt to suppress? This, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason. It's the schizophrenic approach of the left. This is the schizophrenic approach of the liberal. They talk about free speech whilst trying to apologise for its suppression.
Really? You really think people over there with their free speech placards would have started a brawl? Are you serious?
This is the major propaganda piece.
No, there's no. Hold on, no, brother. We got this. Don't heckle him. Let me get this guy, right? I've got it on camera. I've got it on camera, and I have experienced it directly today. Who were the people in favour of free speech? And it was the ethno-nationalists. I disagree with them. There was no violence. There was no violence over there. They disagreed with me and I disagreed with them. But the only place that I got pushed was with the Antifascista.
I'm telling you as well, any of these people going to power,
they did not push me.
They would suppress
they
free speech
did not.
just as much as
Who are these people? Who
Why
are these
were you on the
people?
side of the people?
I'm not on the side of them.
So why are you apologising
I
for
was
them?
on this. I was there. And
Oh, a bit of a Freudian slip there. I was on their side, is what he was going to say.
Basically, I came over to that side as well.
Yeah.
Right. I'm against fascism.
Do you think that if the anti...
Denounce communism.
Yeah, that's what I.
And do you denounce fascism?
Yes.
Okay, that's very respectful.
Yeah, right. What I'm saying is, I think we have to have a nuanced position here. Okay. I am opposed.
So you're a big brain centrist?
Oh, no, I'm not a centrist.
What are you then? You're a socialist. You're a socialist.
I believe in free speech, right? 2 days ago I said on Twitter to North Atlantica, I don't think we should be coming here to know that from somebody, especially at Speaker's Corner. But very much at the same time, I think we should be coming down to argue against people. Okay. Right? And I don't think we can paint people.
That is the world I think most of us are aspiring.
So can I have the interview with you that your anti-fascist friends over there suppressed? Can I have an interview with you?
Sure, it depends on what you're asking me. Maybe I'm not.
Sure, okay.
But, I mean, I think we walk a dangerous line here when we paint these people on the other side here well as pro-free speech. Because if half of them got into power, they wouldn't.
Let's be clear. It's obvious to me.
Well, I think half.
Okay, he wants to have an interview. Thank you. It's all right. It all washes. Thank you so much. You're very kind, sir. Okay, he's not going to have an interview with me. They're going to have an interview conversation. But anyway, my experience today is that whilst I believe that the ethno-nationalists are pro-free speech as a simple stepping stone to another agenda, and I disagree with the ethno-nationalists, the fact of the matter is that the fruits on the ground were I was able to have a civilised conversation with them, even though I disagree with everything they stand for. But on this side, the anti-fascists, who are supposedly defending me from these horrors over here, were the ones that tried to suppress free speech, creating a cordon, telling one another not to engage, pushing me, flashing a light in my eyes, forcing a siren to make creating a siren to make loud noises to suppress free speech, to suppress a discussion, encouraging people not to talk. Thuggish behaviour. The anti-fascist movement in this country needs to be prescribed like National Action was prescribed. National Action was a horrible organisation of ethnic nationalists and it was rightly banned. It's time that the authorities banned Antifascista for the same reasons. We cannot allow a group of trade union thugs to run around the country, beating people up, attacking people in the street, suppressing freedom of speech, and being generally aggressive and unpleasant. In a civilised democracy, freedom of speech is the fertiliser of which democracy grows.
I knew I recognised you.
The Gin and Tonic show next Friday.
If they'll invite me to a studio.
No,
I don't
do it in a physical presence. It's all online.
I don't do.
Neither do I. I'm a technophobe. As
I don't
said.
do
It's very
technology.
easy. Rob
Why do you think
will-
he's got the camera?
Rob will-
I don't know. I don't even know how to
Rob will
work
set
the
it up
thing.
for you.
You know?
And all you need is a laptop.
If someone sets it up for me, maybe. But like,
Rob will set it
I don't know
up.
anything to do with technology.
Neither did I, but it works out.
Yeah.
What's it going?
How are you, Steve? All right.
I'm good.
Good, yeah, I'm good, thank you. All right, interesting day today, isn't it? Indeed. Anyway, it's nice to see you.
Yeah, and you. Take care.
Is this your little one?
Yes.
Connected? No? Okay, fair enough. Okay. How are you, young man? Good. What's your name?
Diana.
Diana, nice to meet you, Diana. Bob. What's your name?
Susanna, can we talk to you both?
Yeah, of course we can. Can we film you like you film us?
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
COE. Where's Leo? Where's Leo?
Here.
I want some share of the Bentley fund today. You know, I feel like I'm earning your wage.
Can I use your name?
Bob.
Bob.
Bob is my name.
Yeah. Can I use it?
Yeah, of course you can.
Hey guys, so now I'm here with Bob. Bob, what are you fighting here for? Why are you in Hyde Park today?
I come here in Hyde Park because I'm a Christian, and because I see Hyde Park as a strategic platform by which the Christian faith and the Christian message can be spread globally. Because whilst to all intents and purposes, Speaker's Corner does look like a bunch of nut jobs all arguing in whatever weather like a bunch of crazy men, the fact of the matter is there are tens of thousands of people right across the world who are tuning in to watch these debates, including in closed countries like Saudi Arabia, and it gives us an opportunity to share the Christian faith with them. Because I genuinely believe that the Christian faith is the answer that Europe needs.
I agree.
So that's.
And you were saying something before about how the anti-fascists would not talk to you, but how the generation identity, the movement that you still disagree with, nevertheless you praise them on their openness to free speech. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Okay, so I believe that, I don't believe that the ethno-nationalists are defending free speech because if they were in power, they would maintain free speech. I believe that they are using it strategically and tactically as a stepping stone, to defend their own right to speak, but also in the hope of keeping a road open for them to gain influence and power in society. However, what I experienced today, regardless of their motives, is that they did defend free speech and that they were open to discussion and criticism without any form of aggression. And that was captured on film by Content Over Everything and by SOCO Films. Now, I wanted to give the Antifascists, I wanted to go and talk to them because I disagree with Antifascists. As a Christian, I follow a muscular faith. I don't follow that kind of limp-wristed, effeminate faith that the Archbishop of Canterbury follows or the Pope follows. My faith is the muscular faith that the Church has always followed down through the ages. But I wanted to go to the Antifascists and give them the opportunity to talk, to give them the opportunity to give their point of view. And what I encountered was people telling people not to engage, forming a human cordon so I couldn't reach people. They started to try and push me. I ended up having to push back because Christians are not called to be pacifists. We are allowed to defend ourselves. They started playing a siren to suppress the conversation. They started flashing a light in my eyes. So they were using very aggressive tactics and techniques as a way of suppressing discussion that I didn't encounter amongst the ethno-nationalists.
As a Christian, what is the biggest thing you disagree with on with the generation identity or ethno-nationalists and then Antifa?
Okay, so in terms of ethno-nationalism, the Christian faith is super nationalist, it's super tribalism. As a Christian, we enter into a new kingdom, we enter into a new identity. The people of God are the Christian church, and that is one nation under God. It is one community under God. If you go into any major church today, this Sunday, you will find people of multiple ethnicities, multiple backgrounds, worshipping God in many tongues. And the global church is a global community. And ethno-nationalism carves away at that truth that is given to us by the apostles. As a Christian, my faith was founded by Jews. Many of its leading figures were Africans. Many of its leading figures were from the Middle East, who were Arabs or other Middle Eastern Assyrians and so on. And it wasn't until the 3rd century that Europeans started to take the fall. Now, so I disagree with this for this reason, because it compromises a Christian truth. And I think that the fight against Islamization is something that can only succeed when it is rooted in the true history of Europe, which is rooted in Christianity, which is multi-tribal, which is multinational. Christians from Britain, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, Poland, united together to stop jihad in the Crusades. Now, in terms of the Antifascista, they're essentially an anarchistic movement And as a Christian, I believe in social order. I believe that authorities are given by God for the good governance of society, and that those are instituted by God. And so those movements that wish to break up social order are not for the common good, and therefore must be opposed. As a Christian, I believe you oppose all injustice. The injustice of Sharia law, the injustice of ethno-nationalism, and the injustice of the Antifascist anarchist movement.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Bob.
Now I want to interview you.
Oh, sure.
So what's your name?
Susanna.
Susanna. And where are you coming from?
So I contribute to Breitbart, and I also am quite active on YouTube and Twitter.
Okay.
So that's at Opinionated European.
An opinionated European. And in terms of this struggle, would some of the people that I've interviewed today do describe themselves as ethno-nationalists? Do you describe yourself as an
No, not at all. I'm also a Christian, and I think that, as you said, and you said it very beautifully, Christians from all around the world can pray together, can worship God together, and I think that as a Christian I'm proud, and I take pride in the fact that it doesn't matter what race you are, what background you are, you can always be one big family. And as you said, I think we are one kingdom of God, and so I could never discriminate against someone in my life because of whatever things they had that they couldn't control.
Yeah.
So that is certainly my problem with ethno-nationalism. That I'm not sure if this is something that generation identity believes in. I don't think so, but I know the alt-right is very much about creating an ethno-state, a white ethno-state, which I think is horrible, which really bothers me, and I could never agree with that ideology simply because I'm a Christian.
And so we have the truth of the Christian faith opposing racism. As a Christian, why do you oppose? I'm guessing you oppose Antifascists, because I know Breitbart does seem to have that tone about it.
Yeah.
So what as a Christian, speaking as a Christian, not as an employee of Breitbart, why do you oppose the Antifascist movement?
Again, as you said, they are communists. As we know, communism in practice has been very much against faith, and Christian faith in particular. I come from Poland, so in my country people had huge issues worshipping throughout the communist era. But most importantly, as you said, I also think that God has given us the commandments, has given us certain rules for life that we should follow as much as we're able to, and if we're going to live in an anarchy, there will be no social structure. I think that marriage is something that is very important, that our society should prioritize the family unit. I don't think that Antifa stands for that.
And in terms of the sort of crisis, the existential crisis that Western Europe is going in right now, for me personally, I think that the church is absconding from a fight that it needs to be involved in. As Christians, where the apostles state, it lists the sins that send us to hell. And amongst those sins, cowardice is one of those sins that sends a Christian to hell. And Christ said that we should fear no man but only God, because after destroying the body, God can destroy the soul, but man can only destroy the body. I don't know how would you reply to this comment, that I think that the church has abandoned a muscular and courageous faith and has given up the fight against opposing ideologies because it has been intimidated. I mean, what do you agree, disagree? What's your thoughts on that as a Christian?
I always had a very uncomfortable relationship with the Catholic Church. Yeah. Simply because I feel that priests often take on the role of political activists. Yes. Or at least in the churches that I went to. And so for me, instead of listening about faith and about what sort of life I should choose according to Jesus, according to the Bible, instead I was being told, vote for this party, sign this petition, yada yada yada. And so for me, worshiping is something that I feel a lot more comfortable currently doing at home, because as you said, the church has, or a lot of churches have taken steps away from the mission of Christianity towards something that I disagree with. So I do think that the church in a lot of ways has abandoned us, and certainly, again, I don't want to generalize, but the churches that I've been to could never answer the questions that I have, existentialist questions.
And I agree. I think that the church in the West is undergoing a bit of an existential crisis at the moment. The last time that we were weak, this week historically, was just before St. Constantine became a Christian. The church has coupled itself to liberal politics, and this has effeminized the church. For the church to reclaim its identity and its sense of purpose, and to have a Christian political vision, would you agree or disagree with the idea that it needs to divorce itself from liberal politics, whether that's be conservative, nationalist, or communist, and to develop a Christian politics based upon a Christian identity.
Yeah, I think primarily the church should stop with activism.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that I agree with. I think that God gave us free will for a reason. And so if somebody chooses a path for themselves that is not in line with the Christian faith, I think that God did that for a reason. They should be living according to their own consciousness. But I also do think that the church would inspire a lot more people who are looking for some sort of a guidance if it stopped involving itself in politics altogether.
I think, for me, this is where we have a disagreement, because I think the church does need to be involved in politics, but its politics needs to be based upon itself.
Right.
So that the center of a Christian political vision is that the church seeks to defend the persecuted church.
Right.
If we have solidarity with persecuted Christians, then what that means is that we have a political activism that stands up for itself and our own identity. And right now, the church needs to rediscover what it means to stand in solidarity with the martyrs and the confessors of the faith. Because across Western Europe, increasingly Christians are being discriminated against. In the Middle East, Christians in some cases are being wiped out. As not just in the Middle East, but you've also got places like in Burma. You know, the liberal media bangs on about what's happening to the Rohingya Muslims, and obviously that is wrong, what's happening to them. But they're totally silent about what's happening to the Karen Christians.
That's definitely something I noticed also on social media, that Christianity became the scapegoat.
Yeah.
If you follow pages that advertise themselves as atheists, they will only tackle issues of Christianity. They will try to humiliate Christianity and Christian faith, whereas they won't touch upon any other religion.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's just with political correctness. I think that we live in an era where Christians are seen as the privileged, Western Europeans or Europeans are seen as the privileged. And so since this is the faith that sort of, of course doesn't originate from here, but has a very strong tradition in the West, I think that's why all these left-wingers see it as something that can be made fun of, whereas other faith cannot be touched upon. It's this intersectional immunity that we have.
Do you not see how the cowardice of the church has emboldened its enemies?
Perhaps, yes. Now that we're putting this into perspective, certainly perhaps engage more young people, because I know that we're having a crisis, at least in Europe, in terms of how many young people are joining Christian faith.
Yeah.
This is not the case in South or Latin American countries, South America, but certainly in Europe. And so, if the Catholic Church emboldened more young people and
to fight for the cause of the church,
fight for the cause of the church, and also be more active on social media, I think that would be great in defending, our faith.
I think that the lack of a muscular faith is one of the central reasons why the church is dying in Western Europe. Because we look at by contrast what's happening in Poland and Hungary and Eastern Europe. In Eastern Europe the church has not lost its vitality and strength. Even if the leadership is a bit misguided and has bought into liberal politics, the laity of the church is willing to defend the identity of the church.
Yes.
And we see that because of that, Poland, Hungary, Serbia and the Eastern Europeans have a much stronger sense of their own identity, are much more able to stand up to liberal politics and the disastrous policies of Merkel. But here in the West, people like the Archbishop of Canterbury have sold their office to the liberal establishment. And every Archbishop of Canterbury, every so-called great leader of the church in the West, sells their office to the establishment to serve the establishment, rather than using their office to serve the kingdom of God and the church.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
You what? All right. Look after yourself, man. Speak to you soon. Anyway, sister.
Yeah.
Peace be with
so
you.
much. Thank you. Peace
It was
be with you.
really, really lovely to speak to you.
Thank you.
Subscribe to SOCO Films.
SOCO Films.
Are you based in the UK?
Yes, I live in London.
Okay.
I study law.
I would like to do a more in-depth discussion with you
Okay, sure.
at some point.
Sure.
Filmed, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you
Just
wanna-
away from this environment where we can sit down and have a better.
Sure.
Yeah?
If you want to take my number.
Okay.